Welcome to Crushgasm, the podcast dedicated to the highs and lows of crushes. From their first to their worst, we're going to cover them all with a cascade of characters, including our guest today, a Taco Bell stan, Brittany High, a producer, host, writer, and TV connoisseur who is here to talk not only about the myriad of projects she has on her plate, but also her Saturday morning cartoon crush on everyone's favorite party dude who lives in a New York sewer, Michelangelo from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Brittany, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. Thank you. Happy to be here.
So before we get into this sewer romance, which you are like my second recent guest to have a crush who came from the depths of New York City sewer system. So shout out to David Dollar. Yeah, his crush is on Amy Adams from Enchanted. But yeah, before we get started, can you tell people where they can find you online?
Totally. I'm at Hi Brittany High on all the things, and my website, because I'm a grandma, right? No, is BrittanyHigh.com. But yeah, Hi Brittany High. You know, you could probably imagine it was utilized against me. Hi Brittany High. So I took it back. I made it my own.
You're like, the power is yours, as Captain Planet would say.
Exactly.
So let's go back in time to when you weren't even in kindergarten yet. You were just a kid watching Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and there he was. Did you understand at the time, like, how you felt about Michelangelo at that age, or were you just like, okay, so the orange one is the coolest one?
I definitely knew I had a crush. It was like, I would say, you know, when you're really little, you're like, I like you. And, you know, obviously it's not like a romantic, you don't have that context at that time. But I definitely was like, I like him. I want him to be my boyfriend.
Oh, okay, so you were all in. And I'm not sure about the science behind it, but I feel like it's just this natural response we have when watching something, or we see like a cast of people or a band, and we try to connect to one of them and declare them as ours. I don't know. I think it's just this fangirl brain that we've become adjusted to. But with the Ninja Turtles, I always felt like they did do a really great job at making each one of them very distinct in personality, even though they didn't look very different. So what about Mikey made him like stand out for you as opposed to the other three?
Well, you know, mainly the pizza and the partying. You know, when you're, 4 years old or whatever, you're like, that's your favorite thing to do too. Because partying in the context of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, what is partying to them? They're like locked up in the sewer with Master Splinter. There's not like legit partying. That's kind of like when you're a kid, you don't really know what a party is anyway. But yeah, I mean, his Californian surfer accent probably felt very like exotic to me in Wichita, Kansas, where I was at that time. Yeah, and my brother, I mean, I can't believe I have to bring my brother into this. I'm like, this is my time. No, are you a younger sibling? Are you middle? Do you have siblings?
Middle.
Okay,
two brothers.
Same. So you get it when like, you know, I'm like not trying to use my pod time to talk about my brother, but then here I am. I'll unpack that in therapy. It's fine. He was very Raphael. I think too, like him making distinctions as the older sibling, him being drawn to certain characters. I wanted to differentiate myself. So he's like rude dude Raphael, and I'm like, oh, but I'm everybody's favorite. You know, Michelangelo's tinier than the rest of them. You know what I mean? He's non-threatening. That's probably something that was very appealing to me.
It's funny you should mention your brother, because my little brother is the one who was obsessed with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in our household. Like he wanted to be a turtle, not just a Ninja Turtle, just a regular old turtle when he grew up. And then when I got older, I met a guy who just as obsessed with Ninja Turtles, and for him it's Donna. My brother was the blue, and then my guy is Donatello, so Leonardo Donatello. But so I want to know, what did like the other brothers just lack for you? Like, because they are pretty cool. You mentioned like Raphael was like your brother, so, but Donnie I feel like was a pretty cool guy. Now that I'm watching as an adult, I'm like, I think I'm a Donnie girl.
That's fair. You know, I went on to like date that type. Like I definitely had a type into my 20s for sure. I mean, my first boyfriend, I mean, my second boyfriend, my third, no, I'm just kidding. But I mean, no, I mean, I definitely had a track record. It's like guys with potential that did not live up to it. You know what I mean? Like they're really smart, but they make like B's and C's, and they're more interested in like what they're doing on Friday night, and like, but nice but they're nice. You know what I mean? That's probably because it's not necessarily, maybe the smarts didn't do it for me, or, you know, being philosophical. Which one is the philosophical? Is that Leonardo? I can't even remember.
I believe it was the blue. Yes. Leo,
yes.
Because like Donnie was like the techie guy.
Yes. Maybe that just wasn't appealing to me as a 4-year-old.
And it was the 90s, so tech was like a VCR. So how like crazy could it have gotten?
Exactly. No, it is. It's mind blowing. It really is. I will say I definitely like, you know, the live action came out in the 90s as well. And I remember it's like my brother and his best friend, they got to go to they went on tour. You know what I mean? They got to do that. Of course, like hearts in my eyes while they explained to me everything that happened, play by play. But then, of course, there's the live action films. I did not have a crush on that iteration.
Oh, okay.
It's probably a reflection of my fear of intimacy. But again, different podcast. You know what I mean? I'm like, no, I want the 2D. I want the inaccessible, emotionally unavailable, won't ever come true version. Yeah.
I mean, and to be fair, like the animated one was like a cuter, like for a 4-year-old, it was just cute. And then like the movies were a little darker, and it was like, so I could see that. But I did mention earlier David Dollar. He came through to talk about his live action Disney crush, which he mentioned that throughout his life, it was common for him to have this sort of like one dedicated crush. But you seem to have your heart in a multitude of places because because while Mikey was your boy, you also loved what I consider around here an icon of crushes, and that is Jonathan Taylor Thomas. In hindsight, do you think that Mikey and JTT had any similarities that caused them both to be like two formative crushes for you growing up?
Oh, you know what? Now that I've never made that connection before, but yeah, I feel like there's something tonally about their voices that are similar, for sure. Even, you know, JTT is Simba, you know what I mean? Like there's some like a cartoon action going on there for sure. But I would say, you know, again, like JTT's like smaller. He's like the brother that's like less assuming. You know what I mean? I mean, is this connecting? I'm like trying to justify it. You're like, whatever you want, girl.
I do see that. I mean, as Randy Taylor, he was the middle child, but he was tinier than Mark by the time they did get older. He was just a short stature. He's a short king. He's like a
short king. Iconic.
So did you ever write to JTT using those addresses in the back of like Tiger Beat and Bot magazine?
You know what? I didn't have the guts to do something like that. But I will say, you know, I had a friend. We were in maybe like 4th grade. This crush went long with JTT. I mean, as many can relate. I'm not the only one. But it was over at my friend's house. I had gotten one of these sticker makers. Remember all those weird products that came out back then that were on, again, Saturday morning cartoons. You're like, I want the sticker maker. It works like crap, but you get to make your own custom stickers. I brought it over to my friend's house for a sleepover. We're making exclusively like really crappy looking JTT. I mean, but also just the letters JTT stickers. And then we like had bonded over our love of JTT. That was like the soul, like the base of our friendship. And we all of a sudden like found ourselves in this conversation where it was clear that we both thought we were the ones who was going to end up with JTT. Like, wait, I thought you were just like had a crush on him and you realized that I was going to be the one with JTT. So I literally had to call my grandma to come pick me up. Like, we got in an argument. We were able to smooth it over, you know, by next Tuesday, guidance counselor's office. But yeah, it was a deep, our friendship was never the same.
I mean, I totally understand. It was like it's like with boy bands, like your friend group, you picked yours and no one was going to touch your guy.
Right.
Like it was just, like with Spice Girls, like you had to have a favorite and that was your girl and that was who you were going to play at lunch. Although I always played the manager because I wasn't girly enough. I was like a tomboy. So I was getting the cash, you know, from
Fair enough. I was going to ask which Spice are you, but it sounds like you're the manager. That's cool. That's a cool take.
If I got to be one, like Sporty is my favorite Spice Girl. I have her memoir that is very long, by the way. I have not gotten through it. But so yeah, JTT, he was like one of the biggest commonalities for 90s kids and crushes. And I had a former guest, Kiki Maroon. She actually lied about liking him as a kid because she didn't really like boys, but she didn't know what that quite meant yet. So to fit in, she's like, oh yeah, I like JTT. But since he was the norm of like everybody and your friend who you had to fight for his heart.
Yeah.
But you said you got hated on for liking a Ninja Turtle. Were you open about loving Mikey at school, or were you like a little self-conscious?
I was open about it. I thought it was like, you think you have fun facts. You're like, I don't know. I remember a friend being like, my dad's belly button is this deep. And you're like, wow, kids don't really have lots of cool stuff to talk about. So I'd be like, I like Michelangelo. And kids at school just like, you can't like a cartoon. That's not even real. And it was the same kind of logic that, I thought I was good. The only boy I knew was my brother. So I was like, I thought we were going to get married. Like that was another bomb that was dropped. Not even any romantic attraction there, as if I have to say that. But you know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, we're going to get married for sure. You can't marry your brother. I'm like, okay, well, who's it going to be? I only know, 7 people. But yeah, I was open about it. I didn't see anything wrong with it, for sure.
Was it were they hating because he was a turtle or because he was a cartoon? Because this was also the time of like very, very hot Disney princes, like Prince Eric, so Aladdin. True. So like, I felt like it was okay to like cartoons, but maybe like the animal ones were a little...
You're right. They might have been like against the turtle part, but they made it about the animated part for sure.
Yeah, because Prince Eric, I mean, who didn't want that guy? Like,
I mean... This is so true. So true.
So, again, this was a very formative crush for you, which a lot of people don't realize how much these like initial crushes are important in their lives and shaping them. Like for me, Nick Carter from the Backstreet Boys made it so like I never even looked at anyone that wasn't blonde with blue eyes for a very long time. Like it was a problem. But for you, you said like Michelangelo imprinted this idea of the perfect guy being someone who, likes to consume pizza and party. Was that something you realized as you started getting older and dating, or was it in hindsight that like, I really do like these type of men at this moment in life?
Honestly, even my first boyfriend, shout out to my first boyfriend, just kidding. Even my first boyfriend, I remember like telling him, because you tell them everything, all the things that don't even matter, like how often you clip your toenails, what your first crush was, like all the things. It's really just an unburdening of all of your secrets. And I remember like him being very flattered, him very much connecting with it. That probably should have been a sign, but I was a teenager, so but no, I mean it is kind of had most of my guy friends have fallen into that category as well. But definitely in retrospect, it was very painfully clear to me. I'm like, wow, it was formative in that. In your Nick Carter, who's actually a person. It was ongoing and then very much sealed the deal when I deviated from that.
I mean, I also, one of my earliest crushes is, I went animal too. It was Alvin from Alvin and Chipmunks and the fox Robin
with his
Hood.
long shirt.
Yeah, it was that dress shirt and then sneakers. Like, Dave Seville was a single dad. He didn't know what to do with these guys.
He was like, everybody gets a big shirt. Let's do this. Saying we got to pay the bills.
I know. Get to that gig right now, Alvin. It should be like a mock documentary, like each Hollywood story.
Yes, behind the scenes, behind the music.
Yes, very much that. So you also noted that this crush on Mikey lasted around your mid-20s. Was that also around the same time you started to steer away from like the party pizza animal, like the pizza party animal guys?
Yes, 100%. You're like, wait, this isn't working. Wait, there's more. I was always envious of my girlfriends who liked like the brooding guy, like especially, high school, like Heath Ledger, like those types. Like, I don't know if it was that I was intimidated by those types. Like by the time I was like mid-20s, I'm like, oh, I want the brooding guy. I want the guy who I can't tell. Again, emotionally unavailable, but in a different way. It's healthy. It's fine.
But you said these guys, they're these type of guys, they're you don't like really go for them anymore. But this crush on Mikey and it dwindled a bit, but I don't think it ever went away because you also said to me you like Zach Galifianakis and Jack Black, who I think have those Mikey vibes to them, and they have like that vibrant spirit. Would you
For
say,
sure.
like,
For
so
sure. I mean, everybody that I've been attracted to across the board has always had like an element of lightness or fun to them. Although I say that, but then I'm like, I know I told you that I have a very, I'm scared to say it on a recording, a chaotic crush on Jason Statham. So with the exception of maybe Jason Statham, everyone I've ever had a crush on ever across the board has had, I mean, I'm a pretty silly person. I don't know if you've noticed, but a pretty silly person, very lighthearted. So of course I'm also going to be attracted to people that are in that vein. But you're right. Maybe Mikey never really went away. Maybe there's still a chance.
those first crushes are always going to hold real estate in your heart. You might not act on them, but they're always going to be playing a part in who catches your eye, I think, for the rest of your life. Because for me,
observation. Oh, Robin Hood, wait, the Fox version?
Yeah, I love people who are giving that fight for the little guy, like that type of personality. It's the only reason I watch that goddamn Green Arrow show on the CW, because that's basically just Robin Hood in a comic book form. But yeah.
That's noble. Mine is pizza and partying. You're like, I like people who give back to their communities.
No, but you said you did not like Michelangelo when he was in live action formation, which I totally get. And they have made a lot of Ninja Turtles. It's one of those franchises that will never go away. Is this something that you keep up with? Like, it's kind of like an old friend. You just are like, oh, they released a new Ninja Turtle movie. Let me check it out. Or a new cartoon on Nickelodeon. Let me see how Michelangelo's doing in this form.
I definitely, you peep your crushes from days before, like on Instagram. You look people up. Mm-hmm. I mean, I definitely have. I'm like, wow, married with 7 kids. Got it. It just wouldn't have worked out. I got it. But yeah, I've definitely checked in with Mikey over the years. And there's a new film out now. Like, am I promoting it? I haven't seen it. But it did sound like I was promoting it. It didn't. I was like, oh, this is my plug. But no, I haven't seen it, so I can't. But I did look at the style of animation, and yeah, my crush is very like rooted in the 1987 cartoon. It has not. It's that version of him, that iteration.
Well, I will say the new one, Mutant Mayhem, they're finally teenagers in this, and this is my favorite version of the Ninja Turtles, having seen them all. This one goes above. It starts out very John Hughes. It's hilarious. Seth Rogen can't be beat when it comes to these kind of teen comedies. I'm like, it made me like cry at the beginning, and then I
like right off the start.
Yeah, it was because they are teens and they're yearning for that normalcy of being teenager. It's so good.
This is your selling. Now, are you meant to plug this? No, I'm gonna watch it now. I'm going to watch it.
I will say that you won't fall for. I don't think the turtles are the crushes. It is Paul Rudd's character. He is so funny in this movie.
Always Paul Rudd. Gosh, universal crush.
He is. He's like I think if you like pulled the world, him and Ryan Reynolds would be like the Mount Rushmore of everybody this loves.
Oh, a Mount Rushmore of crushes. I would love Mount Crushmore. Let's make it. Let's do it. We have no power in that, but let's do it.
I'm like, you know what, South Dakota, we're getting rid of the presidents. We're putting Paul Rudd, Ryan Reynolds. This is what is going to bring America together.
I think so.
This is the platform I'm going to run on for president.
You've got my vote.
And JTT, I'm going to throw JTT in there too.
Gosh, JTT. I mean, where is he? Like, call me. Just kidding. I mean, no, call me if you're listening.
I research him often. It's like every few months because I do this, and he comes up a lot. If you're talking to someone of a particular age, he'll come up. Just a natural response. And then I'll go and I'll be like, has he done anything? Sadly, no. I think the last thing he did was that Tim Allen show. And I was like,
what a waste.
I know. I was like, Jesus. I'm hope maybe something for a Lion King. You know, he doesn't even show up for those, and they've remade him.
He really doesn't. He really doesn't.
So before we move on and we talk more about what you have going on, I want to see what your life would be like if you were living in New York City and you landed in April O'Neil's shoes. You came across the Ninja Turtles and you became their human ally. Eventually, sparks flew, and between you and Michelangelo, would you give the relationship a go?
100%. That was always my thing about April O'Neil is why would you want Casey Jones if you can have Michelangelo? And when you were talking about the turtles being actual teenagers in this latest film, I had the thought for the first time, I wonder if somebody's, some spec script or something, an SNL sketch. I don't know. I want to see like adult mutant Ninja Turtles. Adult mutant Ninja Turtles. Yeah, I want to see how them grow up.
Yeah.
It's been done.
From where the movie is, I won't spoil, but I feel like they're definitely getting a sequel, and I hope it continues. This is a really good like iteration of them to like start in high school and grow up. I could see them hopefully getting to like a college. So
okay,
we'll see. Seth Rogen, come on, keep it going.
He will too. But as far as April, man, if I was in April, that was the dream, right? I wanted to be April. And I'm like, why would you date this guy when you can date that guy? I guess I wasn't taking into consideration like the age difference. But I'm cool with the interspecies stuff. That's fine.
The age, you're like, but yeah. But I don't know how turtles age. So we're calling them teenagers, but
they
in
live
turtle
forever.
years,
yeah, exactly. They live like 200 years.
That is true. So it's kind of like Grogu in The Mandalorian. I think he looks like a baby, but they really said he's like 50 in human years or something. So who knows?
Old.
Who knows?
I mean, no,
turtles?
that's not old. I'm sorry. Delete that. That's not old. 50 isn't old.
I mean, for some.
For some, yeah. Yeah. If you're a cat, it's super old.
I mean, yeah. God, cats do look really old. We'll get to cats in a second.
Yeah.
We're gonna move on from Mikey and focus on you more now. You're out in LA. When did you said you're from Wichita. When did you head out to SoCal?
So I was born in Wichita. I lived there for first few years of my life. My family actually moved to North Carolina where I grew up until I graduated high school. And then went to college. And then I moved out to LA. I moved out to LA about 15 years ago. So I've been out here other than like this random year stint in New York. Where I was like, maybe I'll live in New York now. And then it was really cold. And so I moved back. Yeah, it was cold, you guys. But so I've been in LA for the last 15 years. And people who were born here, were you born in Southern California?
I was born in Southern California, but like near Palm Springs. So
sure,
like out in the desert.
So maybe you're not like this, but people who were born in Los Angeles often ask when I say, "Oh, I've been out here for 15 years." They say, "How do you like it so far?" Well, verdict's still out. I'm still thinking about it. Yeah, I like it. I enjoy it. I've been here for a minute, so yeah, I've been in LA since then.
Did you move out there for like career opportunities?
Yes. I mean, I'm from a really small town and nobody I knew was in any kind of film or anything like that. Like, you know what I mean? You're like, the Andy Griffith show was shot in North Carolina. Like, that's the extent of like what we had. So yeah, I mean, it was just like somebody who wanted to grow up and be an actress, director, writer. I mean, honestly, I would have done anything, but this was the place to be. So, you just move out to Hollywood, what you think that you're supposed to do to be able to do that. Obviously now, like, you don't have to live here to launch your career, but yeah, that's why I moved here. Actress, director, writer, extraordinaire was what was in my mind. And of course, you find yourself, I didn't even know about podcasting when I moved out here. You know what I mean? That wasn't a thing. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a thing. So.
And you said you had this dream of doing it all, moving to LA, but what set you down that creative path when you were younger? Like what got you interested in all that?
Well, I grew up doing like school plays, church plays, that kind of stuff. And have you ever been in you know anything about church theater? It's a thing. But you know, I did theater and all of that stuff throughout high school. But synchronicity, coincidentally, however you want to spin it, like I said, no film was ever done where I was from. But when I was 14, I was cast in an after-school special, and that was shot in the town that I lived in. And I'm like, my brother and our friends, we were all cast in this feature film, and just seeing that and being exposed to that. I mean, it didn't go anywhere. It like wasn't distributed or anything like that. It's horrifying to watch. I haven't watched it for many years. Every time I watch it, I'm like, oh God, oh no, oh, 14-year-old me trying to act. Wow. Right. So funny. I was not a natural. I'm just saying. But yeah, that's actually like what got the spark or the itch or whatever people say. My brother and I and our friends, you know, would borrow the camera from our school and shoot our own movies. We did a pretty ill-advised, admittedly, Blair Witch Project. The Sandwich Project was our first film, you know, but we've been making films this whole time. And but once, you know, I had it, I never wanted to let it go. And I got all these really crazy, nobody else was making films. No other 15-year-olds were making films at the time. So I got to you know, get away with a lot of stuff at school, stuff at the talent show. And I mean, I don't know, just assemblies at school. They're like, we're going to play, a student made a film, we're going to have to watch it. Well, I'm not saying it was good, but now it's really cool to see, like you were saying about VCR being the technology of our time. Mm-hmm. It's really cool that that's accessible to everyone. One of the projects that or two of the projects I've worked on within the past few years are short films that were shot exclusively on iPhone. And it was partially to say that, you know, we did it, or that it could be done, and partially because, you know, it was during pandemic times and, you know, you need a really slim crew for that. But honestly, it's really cool expression to be able to demonstrate that it is accessible to everybody. And that's one of the biggest things that I love reiterating to people. Like, you don't have to have a bunch of stuff or a bunch of money or a bunch of people to make your films.
Or to make music or to write screenplays, which you're doing right now. You're doing a lot. Are you able to like compartmentalize, that's a hard word to say, and be like, okay, so today I'm gonna do my music, or today I'm gonna go to a coffee shop and focus on the screenplay? Do you pick days, or is it just like whatever you feel that day, that's what you're working on?
I have like overarching goals, like, oh, I want to complete my screenplay by this date so that I can submit it to this competition, or so I can share it with my writing group. But I have like blocks every day that I dedicate to creativity, and I like have a gigantic list. I'm like, because if I'm stumped, you know, I try to like let it be guided like intuitively. Like I often, you know, I'll walk past my guitar and like feel the inclination to play. So I will use my time for that. If, you know, I'm like, oh, I'm not really on deadline, my self-imposed deadlines, but I'm not really on deadline right now, so I'm going to do this. Sometimes I just feel inspired. I'm like, oh, I had come up with something for my screenplay or an idea for a future series or whatever. Like, I'll spend like an hour just like writing it all down, brain dump, all of that stuff. But I mean, that's one of my go-tos, is like block in your time every day, even if it's a half an hour. You will move your projects forward like massively, and it's less pressure, because I mean, you know, you gotta like light the candle, get it all set up, and okay, I'm gonna write my screenplay now. It's like, that's where writer's block comes from what I see. I mean, because I've definitely been there. I put the pressure on myself and not produced anything. It's kind of like when you take the pressure off and you're like, I'm just gonna see what comes out, and then it moves it forward.
I'm gonna try that block thing, because I have a lot of things going on, and I'm like, sometimes you can get like overwhelmed and you're like, well, I have to edit this, but I have to write this article and da-da-da-da-da-da. So I'm gonna try that block thing. Thank you.
Do it. And you know, I look at my week, at the top of the week, I look at my week and I'm like, well, you know, because some things I actually have to do. you know what I mean? It's not just like all free-flowing creativity, but it's like, oh, okay. So then I have like my taking care of business blocks that I'm like, I actually need to edit this episode, for example. Then I will actually, that's not considered my creativity time because it's not free-flowing. It's like, I actually have to do this.
So, I don't want to give your brother more time
No,
in
no,
your
it's okay.
pod time, but you are
It's okay.
working with him on a documentary, Ford Comes to Wichita, and it's about something that I was very unaware of, and that's Harrison Ford's annual trips to Wichita. But one Google search will let you know this is a really big thing. Was this just a pay homage to where you guys came from?
So I'm so glad that you asked. It's such an interesting thing to have to like segue into. So you bringing it up and asking about it, like you set me up. I'll be able to walk you through it. So my brother and I, like I said, we were born in Wichita and we moved away when we were really young. And it was after our parents had gotten divorced and we moved with our mom to North Carolina. Our father stayed in Wichita. So our connection to Wichita was not very strong outside of, you know, like maybe a yearly visit. And sometimes we wouldn't go there. He would come to North Carolina. So our relationship to Wichita was very tenuous, and it wasn't necessarily like a bright time that when we had lived there. And you know, my family has since moved back. So my grandmother and my mother and my I have family in Wichita again. And so then we were kind of forced to not forced, but you know what I mean, like reckoning, right, with coming to terms with this place that has this history, but we don't really have a relationship to it. We also started to notice things like when we were back, you know, because we were trying to be engaged in some capacity just in our visits. So they do have a really cool film festival there. It's called Tallgrass Film Festival. So we've submitted films to that and been played there and always go to that. But you know, having this relationship to this town, like we were like, we don't even have friends there. Like we don't know anybody there. And my brother recently, well, I guess 2 years ago, had a child. And, you know, I think that makes you kind of grapple with your history, especially if it's not completely sorted. I mean, whose history is sorted, but you know what I mean? And I mean sorted, not sorted. But yeah, he came to me with this idea that it's this person that comes to town, Harrison Ford, comes to town yearly. It's like a pilgrimage. And he was kind of like, oh, I kind of relate to that. not the international superstar part of it, but like that, like once a year we'll go and visit, and it's this short whirlwind of a trip, and we don't have a lot of roots there, but then again we kind of do. But a funny thing is, you'll talk to people there, and their first question when you're getting to talk to them is, where did you go to high school? And you're like, oh, I didn't go to high school here. And they say, well, then you're not from here. And so even in the documentary, we're interviewing all of these people, Wichita historian, actually a man that is rumored to be the person that Indiana Jones was based off of, Skylar Jones. Very, very, really interesting stuff that we found while we were, you know, just trying to understand the city and see it through the lens of his Harrison Ford's annual visit to the town. Just really, really interesting stuff. Everyone reflected the concept that if you didn't go to high school there, and there's only a handful of high schools, then they don't consider you from the town. So it's kind of this insular community. And I know this is like way more long-winded answer than you were looking for, but I will say Harrison Ford coming to this town, you see the town lighting up in a different way and wanting to be worthy of that. And it's really, really interesting way to look at a place that otherwise you might, again, like it's a flyover state, right? You might fly over that, but he comes there every year since the 90s, once a year.
yeah, I was like, what is this? Like, and then I looked into it and I was like, okay, this is a whole, it's kind of like these like niche little things like you find on the internet or something like that. Like I will ask right now, you like cat people, you recently hosted a trivia at a cat con, which I've always wanted to go to this. I have a lot of cat lady friends. So how was that?
Oh, good. I've been working with CatCon for many years. I will be honest. This is Brittany trivia, but I don't have cats, so I love cats. I'm an animal person in general. But in 2015, the first CatCon, I covered it. I did a video for it for a publication I was working for at the time, and they after seeing that video, they were like, "Wow, we would love for you personally." Is that a cat pun? Personally, to host our content in the future. So I've been making content with CatCon for many years. Even over the pandemic, they did CatCon from your couch. But yeah, this was a big in-person, sold out and all of that stuff, like really a successful event. But, I was like, what qualifies me to host cat trivia? But I did it and it was so fun. I have this is not a crush, okay, but I do love Santa Claus, weirdly. I love the concept. And so I really did feel like Santa Claus. I got to hand out a bunch of prizes and free merch and stuff. And that was really like the highlight of everything for me.
That's really fun. I think, and I love trivia. So if you could host it, that's really cool. You're like the queen of the trivia for the day. Santa Claus, that's interesting.
Well, no, it's just like the concept. I'm like, wow, to be able to make everybody's like, nobody has beef with Santa. You know what I mean? And he just makes people happy. I'm like, I was not intending on exposing that. But anyway.
Except for in A Nightmare Before Christmas, they did have some beef with him at the start, Sandy Claus.
So
true.
They
kidnapped him, but I think they resolved it. I haven't seen it in a while, but I think he's cool. I don't think they hurt him or anything. It's a Disney movie. Wasn't any murder.
Fine. He's fine. He's been through a lot. He'll make it through. He's been through worse.
Like they just did David Harbour from Stranger Things with Santa Claus in That Violent Night, and that was a hot Santa Claus. So,
ooh, yeah, yow. Okay, well, maybe I take it back.
So you're doing music, you're writing screenplays, you have this documentary. Is there anything else you're working on right now?
Oh, I mean, I am working on some other things, but nothing. I mean, nothing. I have anything to point to at this point. I'm like working on a YA series with one of my childhood best friends. It's witchy and end of the world. But that it'll be a minute before that. It'll be many minutes before that sees the light of day.
I mean, writing books. That is like the one thing everyone's like, oh, you're a writer. Why don't you write books? Like that's a whole different monster than writing like a blog about like Backstreet Boys. Come on. I can tell you the top 20 songs, but I'm not going to be able to write you a whole story about it. Like, no.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
It's a lot of, and I'm also a slow reader, so you can imagine me trying to write something as long as that.
You can do it, though. I believe in you.
I have an idea, but we'll see how it goes. So before we do wrap up, I do want to play like a quick speed round based around Saturday morning cartoons, since that's where your crush spawned from. Are you up for it?
Yeah, I'll do it. I'm like, my heart's pounding, but yes, let's do this.
So other than Ninja Turtles, what was like your must-watch cartoon as a kid?
Oh, Batman, the animated series.
Really? That was like too dark for me. I remember like it looked cool, but it came on right before Power Rangers and I would mute it and then like play Barbies and then unmute it once like 5 o'clock hit. It was just like, this animation's too spooky for me.
I hear that. Dark childhood, attracted to dark things. Yeah. It's fine.
I was like, but my husband has a 90s podcast and we recently watched one of those episodes of Batman and I was like, this is actually really good. Like now that I'm older.
Good. It stands up. It really does.
And it was one where the Joker, like he releases laughing gas to the city and got dark. So what a cartoon, you love that one, but what was one that you could miss that everyone was talking about, but you were like, this is nothing to write home about? You just weren't impressed.
You know, you mentioned, I know it's not a cartoon, but you did mention Power Rangers. I feel like that all, like, just my brain, my interest at the time, everybody was into it. Everybody at recess was playing Power Rangers. I just never connected with it. And to your point earlier, you were saying your friend claiming to have a crush on JTT just to fit in. That was definitely me. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm the Pink Ranger.
They took from Ninja Turtles, though. They took colors. They gave them their personalities based around a color. And it's easy for a kid to be like, I like that one. That one's cool. Like my brother loved Leonardo. He loved Billy because he was blue. My brother wasn't too deep.
Yeah.
It's like, are you blue?
Hopefully he's evolved. Yeah.
He still loves Power. He stole the Mutant Mayhem bus poster. It's in his room. He's 30. He's really proud of it.
I mean, I'm proud too. Good for you, living your life.
He also, like your brother. My brothers had kids. I'm the one that never gave grandchildren because why? I have a dog. Yeah, that's enough.
But you take your grand dog and you'll love it. I'm with you.
They're so much more well behaved than their children. Let's just put it that way. So, there's a lot of male characters that get a lot of hype, but who is your favorite like female cartoon character?
Ooh, that's a good question. Was her name Gadget? Or from what is that show? I know. I mean,
Rescue Rangers.
Yes, Rescue Rangers. Yes, I do remember really like thinking she was cool, but being like, wow, I could only aspire to be as cool as she is.
Same. I thought she was like adorable. She had the like purple jumpsuit, which Target had one recently, and I was like, oh my god, I could be Gadget. Really? And then I was like, I tried it on. I was like, no, girl, no.
Maybe I won't, but I won't.
I was like, oh darn.
I'm just curious. What's one of your girl animated dealies?
If I'm gonna go with like the Saturday morning cartoon brew, I really loved. I love Susie from Rugrats.
Like
Angelica's 100%. Like nemesis.
Yeah,
she was nice.
I know. I love that. Oh, she was a sweetie. She was like a good older kid.
And her voice, like Cree Summer is. I think she played just about every Black female cartoon character of the 90s.
Totally.
Just one of my favorites. But if you like cartoon anime, it's Jane from Daria.
Sweet. Yes.
Like if you were to boil down my personality, like who I base myself on, like teenage years, it was her.
That's awesome. I'm definitely like a Miss Piggy Muppet Babies also, for sure.
I mean, she was iconic. I just was on the Muppet movie from like 2011's IMDb since I was like talking about Amy Adams. And if you go to it, the photo shoot Miss Piggy has on the IMDb for that movie is glorious.
That's hilarious. I will definitely check that out. She is like inspiration. She's like my mood board for sure.
She's an icon. She's a legend. She could be on the Crushmore.
Yes, right next to Paul Rudd and Ryan Reynolds. Then Miss Piggy.
The girl who pretended to like JTT, Kermit, was actually her ultimate crush. She loves puppets.
So cute. That's so cute.
And so for animation, who would you say was like your favorite kind of best friend duo pair?
I loved Doug and Patty. I know that there was crushing going on, but they were also genuine friends. Like he wasn't just crushing on her. And when he thought she maybe didn't like him back, he didn't like punish her for it. He was still like her friend. And same with her. Like she was just like a good friend. I know that they did end up getting together in different areas of the series, but I love the consistent friendship that, you know how I'm talking about? Like, I'm not trying to generalize. Hashtag not all men, am I right? But like lots of men, like they'll be like crushing on you until you say, oh, I'm not interested. And then they're like not your friend anymore. So Doug was a really good, touch point for me.
What I always found interesting about Doug, now that when I got older, is he was only supposed to be about 11 years old. And I was like, he had the most intense feelings for an 11-year-old.
I don't know why. One of my very, very weirdly distinct memories about that series is like when it was picked up by Disney instead. And it was like an episode about him like wanting to go through puberty and taping hair under his armpits. And I just remember like I was too young, like I was probably 11 and just feeling like I wasn't ready for my body to change. I wasn't ready for Doug's body to change.
Doug was like that is wild to watch. When we got Disney Plus, I was like watching those ones, and I was like, this show is wild. Doug was a lot.
Really,
He's extra.
it's intense. He's extra for sure. Yeah, just like instead of like the armpit hair, just give him a couple more hairs on his head. They give him like 3 freaking hairs. Let him have a couple more strands.
No, he was like that. What is that PBS one? Caillou or whatever. That little bald child that no.
Yes.
He's the girl version.
Help him out.
Yeah, his hair was an issue, and he dressed like a little old man. 11 years old.
Little peepaw. 11-year-old peepaw.
So, last one. I know Ninja Turtles is up there. And you mentioned Rescue Rangers, but do you have like a favorite animated theme song?
Well, DuckTales is just iconic. That's just recurring. I feel like everybody would say that, but maybe I'm projecting. DuckTales is so good.
I'm in the I Did Not Make These Rankings podcast network, and we just did a bracket for TV theme songs. DuckTales made it out of 104. I believe DuckTales made it to the top 4.
What did win?
Cheers, because people that vote are Gen X mostly.
Gotcha.
So.
That makes sense.
So, but I was really sad to see Gummy Bears go out really early in the bracket. I was pulling for it.
Oh, that's a classic.
And DuckTales, if you've never seen Brendan Urie from Panic at the Disco sing that theme song, I highly recommend.
Ooh, I know what I'm doing after this.
He did it on, I believe, Jimmy Fallon. So it's so good. So
nice.
Good. So that's it for my speed round. So again, can you remind people where they can find you online?
I'm at Hi Brittany High on all the things. And you can find me at Brittany High. Well, www.brittanyhigh.com.
Brittany, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me about your Saturday morning crush. And everyone, you can find all that information below. And until next time, as always, keep crushing it. Crushgasm is part of the I Did Not Make These Rankings podcast network, alongside some other pretty cool shows, including An Evening at the Movies, Crime, Rewind, Literature Reapers, Love is Black, Masturbators, Men Are the Prize, and The Simplest. You can find all of us and more over at idnmtrpodcastnetwork.com.